Hello, everyone. We are just under a minute remaining until the start of our point battle. Welcome, Monarchist, Aaron, Blitzforce, Demon, and anyone else watching. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the chat, and it looks like the tournament is ready to go. Once our participants start dueling, we will go ahead and spectate them. I'll go ahead and send one more ping and let everyone know that it has indeed started. So it looks like we have 13 players today. 14 in the room, but I'm only here to spectate. Let's go ahead and see what's going on. So unlike a traditional tournament, point battles do allow players to switch their deck throughout the event. So what we see now may not be what we see an hour from now. However, we currently are not seeing any cards, as both players simply set a bunch and pass. Bungle is using a Hammer Crush, but the discard of Gravity Plus Dragon is quite odd. You would expect a Hammer Crush deck to be aggro, but Gravity Plus Dragon suggests Resonance. However, we do see Censored Duckbill, a non-dragon monster. So this is indeed going to be some kind of aggro deck. Duelist is running, presumably Magnum Overlord with Giant Tortoise of Greed. On the launch of the game, this card was terrible, but it now does have some use case, being able to turn off Thunder players from using their effect. With only 2,000 life points, Duelist could maximum summon and end the game, but it looks like all they have is a lone mage, and that is going to be it for game number 1. A bit of an odd one, but also quite quick. Let's go ahead and see what is up next. Two Gavins. Gavin is definitely what I would say is the least popular character in the game. So running into two of them right away is a bit odd. One is on an archive skill, so presumably Harpies or Thunder. But it could be something like Red Eyes Rebel as well. We do see it is a Thunder deck, and Zid has no cards in hand. With a perfect hand, Yagi could be summoning out a Trigger Drago, but it doesn't appear that they have it. The recital is going to keep Zid's life points safe, and we see an odd choice of Mushroom Man. Presumably, they are running Double Block, a card that requires you to own multiple level 2 normal monsters in your hand. But with Trigger Drago and Piercing Samurai, ready to attack. I was gonna say Zid is in danger, but thanks to the double block, they take no damage. Alright, they set and tribute set as well. Presumably that is going to be a Harpy's Pet Dragon, but Trigger Drago with 2,500 or 2,800 attack is going to run right over it. Yagi does not notice the tribute set and accidentally runs Piercing Samurai right into it. Zid continues to stall out and has somehow taken a life point lead despite not playing a single attack position monster this entire game. Blitz Force and Funny. In order to join the duel room, you have to be in it before the start of the event. I feel like this has happened every week, where someone is going to be just a little bit late. If you want to participate in the future events, I will go ahead and link the Discord server. In order to play, you do need to join the Discord to get announcements for the event. Alright, and here we go. Zit has summoned the Harpy Maximum, and presumably is swinging in for lethal. After stalling for many turns with their level 2 normals, they managed to pick up a win. Now, the one thing I would say is a potential downside is if your win condition involves stalling for several turns. You might not be able to do it in a point battle room where time is of the essence. We'll go ahead and see how they perform throughout the event. Let's go ahead and hop over to Dingus. A classic Residence board by Dingus and swinging in for 1500. However, we do see Doom Metal and Phaser. This could be the new Rebel skill. Which I may have already missed from the previous turn, but it is not. They are indeed on Hell Tuning Invasion, but they have 2 level 7 monsters ready to summon. Doom Metal is coming out and wiping the board. However, it doesn't deal quite as much damage as it would normally, as forcing a Hell Tuning Invasion lowers the Slayer's level. We see a Phoenix Dragon attributed for Gravity Press, which might seem odd when a Dragonic Slayer is here. However, based on the cards in their hand, they didn't have the low levels to support it. And this play does work out. However, they are in danger of losing to a Heavy Metal, who would swing in for exactly 2500. Manarchist whiffs, and Dragius gets a chance to shine. However, with a monster set face down, Dingus is not swinging in for any points of damage this turn. Manarchist sets 4 and passes. Dragonic Slayer is going to be able to destroy that face down card. But yet again, no damage is getting through. And Manarchist is now ready to make a play to end the game. Invasion is going to wipe the board, but unless they have a Shadow Buyer, this isn't enough. Vogue of Arching will provide protection from Widespread Ruin, but the guard does block the attack. Welcome, Sarah, Elvin, and Drill. I think this game is still not over. Wait, we don't see a Dragonic Resonance buff. I may have missed it earlier in the turn. I did. They used it to draw a card with the Triad Drago. Or at least try to. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted and didn't quite notice what happened last turn. We see another Rogue of Artrine play, and this one does connect. However, Dingus, surviving at 200 life points, might just be able to finish the game. It's all going to come down to Manicus' set card. But with Dragon's Inferno, it is guaranteed over. Dingus takes a win. And next up, we will do Whoop versus Duelist. And we see Duelist set a field spell face down. Presumably this is 4 levels arena. But it could be Forest. Or even Shining City Knights. Doom crashes in. And Duelist gets in for 2200. Not a bad start. Whoop uses the Hammer Crush deal to draw an extra card. But given that the only back row is a field spell, I would not be expecting them to actually activate the Hammer Crush here. And as expected, they do not. Instead opting to simply swing in with their low level monsters to clear out Duelist's board. We see a full void level field filled with monsters you don't always see in a Rebel deck. Fall Owl is definitely the least popular of the three. Growl has fallen off a little bit with Hell Tuning Invasion, and Palace Gargoyle is a bit of a tech card. Steel Ray is going to debuff this Growl by 1200. And Whoop once again clears the board while taking an advantage. Duelist is not quite out of the game just yet though. Summoning Flute is not going to have a good enough target, or even enough normals in the graveyard to use the effect. Unfortunately, that is not going to be a strong enough board. And the game is over. Next up, we are going to be following Sora, who is not on their signature 7's Axel Road deck today. Looks like they are running a regular Royal Rebel list, though it could theoretically still be aggro. Essel on turn 1. Often, I would consider this a mistake. Unless you have a specific plan. However, it looks like they didn't have any low-level monsters in their hand, and we're using the Essel to set up a monster reincarnation, which is fair. Twin-Edged Dragon into Dragius. And Sora is in trouble. Unless we see a Widespread Ruin flip here. That is 4,000 direct damage plus the battle damage from earlier. The guard barely keeps Sora in this game. But at a significant life point deficit. Let's see if Hell Tuning Invasion is good enough to turn this around. Heavy Metal is going to be able to eat Dragius and then swing into the Twin Edge Dragon. 4,000 damage is certainly quite a bit, but a regular board from Resonance ends the game in return. Dragonic Slayer and two good low-level monsters would be enough. Twin Edge Dragon also seals it, as it is able to swing in for 3,000 direct damage, eliminating Sora's remaining life points. And I don't think we've seen Moosh play yet. So let's go ahead and see what they are on. And we see a turn to Essel from Moosh, milling a Trigger Drago. Unfortunately for them, Zid has kept a card in hand. Though I probably would still have used one of the Trigger Drago's effects just to try to swing in for the extra 300 damage had they not had a trap card. Zid sets 3 and passes. With plenty of cards in hand, there is no worries about the piercing from Trigger Drago coming into effect. We see them go ahead and set more cards. Will a double block be coming out? It doesn't look like it, but the guard is going to shuffle back in those level 2 normal monsters before Zid takes 2,500. Tornado Draw is activated. Do they have all 3 pieces? And it looks like they do. Harpy Lady Sisters maximum on the board. Talismanic Seal Array going to debuff a Trigger Drago by 14. However, this is not lethal, and a Thunder deck does have ways to clear the max. Trigger Drago plus any additional debuff, such as from the Lightning Trigger skill, is enough. Blast Jaws, you need for a Drago specifically, but not for the Harpy Ladies. We see Stormbolt Destroyer and an Arching Soldier. This game might be over unless Sid is able to protect that Harpy Lady Sisters. They are still alive, but they don't have much else in the deck going for them. Moosh does only have 900 life points, but does Zid have any additional way to deal damage? And I don't think the answer is yes. Let's go ahead and see what Demon is playing. I think they are the only player remaining where we have not seen any cards, or where we haven't spectated them yet. A Hell Tuning Invasion deck, presumably, but we don't see any bosses, so Demon is forced to simply pass turn. And against a Hammer Crush Deal aggro deck, you do not want to be in a position with 2 low-level monsters face up. Especially not ones with 0 defense. This Dragius alone is already 5,000 damage. If they summon a second Dragius here, that would be game. But that seems pretty likely, given the crawling torso. Demon B completely rolled over by the blue dragon. I don't think there was very much they could have done about this. Sometimes your opponent just gets the draw. Let's go ahead and look at Fako. Glasses says, where does the double block and Tortoise of Greed come from? So, Zid has been experimenting with the double block for a while now. The Tortoise of Greed, I think, is probably meant to deal with Thunder specifically. Though it could also be a bit of a collection issue. A turn 1 Ghost Cyclone doing quite well. Unfortunately, there is no follow-up, and that leaves Fako completely open. Oh, Fako is also on it. I knew Duelist was running Tortoise earlier. I was not aware Fako had it. In any case, I do think the Tortoise is very funny. Oh, Fako is also running the double block, you mean? Maybe they are testing partners. Or they were just so impressed after fighting with Zid that they decided to try it out. Tortoise of Greed. And this actually does work when you have 3 cards in hand. As the Tortoise of Greed is now going to give you a 6th card on your next turn. But Fako does not have the trap cards needed to save them. And they go down despite the Tortoise of Greed's activation. Let's go with Whoop and Manarchist. This should be a relatively high-level game. Both of these players have put in results in events. Also, quite an interesting dual background. I don't know if these are randomized or if we are seeing what the players see. But I don't think I've seen this Dungeon Dice Monsters themed background in a while. Manarchist opens up with a set 5, and 3 back row could be a little bit dangerous. Whoop opens with a double witch board, which is a little bit concerning, as you definitely want to save witches for later. However, I guess they didn't have much of a choice when their hand was a bunch of low levels and the witch. Reincarnation, bring back another low level monster. But why bother? They don't have any face down cards. And you have a Shadow Buyer on board. I feel like this reincarnation was not necessary. I probably would have tried to get in with the Shadow Buyer if they had the level monsters to fuel it. Just summon the goat, and discard the reincarnation with the skill. In any case, they are taking a pretty big amount of damage. Manarchus uses the guard to block them. We see a Shadow Buyer play again. But again, it's a level 8 monster, not going to be able to do the attack. So presumably this final card is... Yeah, they had lethal. If they just summoned the Shadow Buyer and swung in. Unless I am missing something. But Whoop is definitely going to take advantage of this, destroying Essel and swinging in with their remaining monsters. However, with 2 copies of which shuffled back into the deck and seen early, it looks like Whoop has not been able to find a single high-level monster since then. Shadow Buyer using the effect one more time. Before a Doom Metal summon. They crash off the Shadow Buyer so that Seven Sword Magician is unable to swing into it for a game. And Manarchus is in the chat saying they forgot that this is Seven's Axle Road rather than Magnum, which is leading to the awkward plays. Yeah, oddly enough, Magnum should be a very strong deck currently. But thanks to Sora's initiatives, everyone is running someone's Axel Road instead. And then it looks like Whoop surrendered. That was an incredibly odd game. Alright, we are going to be looking at Sora and Dingus as Sora appears to have some issues with this. Presumably, I'm assuming it's because they have matched up multiple times or something. If not that, then Dingus must have done something pretty interesting. Alright, so we see a Gravity Pest Dragon and 3 more face down cards. Dealer, oh, and Sora is actually back on Seven's Axel Road. They started the event running the Rebels, but appear to have changed back to their tried and true deck. But this time, they are on Recovery Force, rather than presumably a Talismanic Seal Array, would be the other card in a similar slot. Witch and Magician clear the board, but there is no additional low-level monster, and Dragon's Inferno destroys that back row. We see 2 Draco the Tiny, which are here for the Royal Level matchup, but are otherwise going to be fairly unimpressive. We see a Dragonic Pressure in the grave, and Gravity Pest Dragon summoned out. The 500 attack Phoenix Dragon, I guess, is going to get in for a little bit more damage. And it is relevant by bringing Sora down from 4,900 to 4,400. Sora is now in range of several Dragonic Pressure lethals. Slayer paired with anything, with at least, I think, like 1,200 attack. Should be able to do it. Or less. 1,100. Alright, and we do see the Phoenix Dragon survived the turn, allowing Dragonic Slayer to come out one more time, and this is going to spell the end of the game. Dingus takes a win. Sios and Zid, I think, are players we have not seen too much of. We know Zid is on a weird maximum deck, but we haven't seen Sios at all. And we see Zid is naturally starting with a pretty defensive play. Essel is going to find a Trigger Drago, which puts them off to a great start. Stormbolt Destroyer additionally going to help revive a monster and keep something in hand for later. But we know Zid is on a ton of trap cards. However, it looks like they don't have any recitals to save them this time. And they are already down to just 800 life. Dark Sword Magician in defense mode to help stall out the time. And with Arching Soldier with 1500 defense, the Angler Coilfish is unable to clear, letting Zid keep another monster on board for later. We see them tribute set the Pet Dragon, but then they concede. Presumably, they don't have any copies of cards like the Guard face down to save them. That's been half an hour. Let's see how the rankings are going. Moosh in first with 4,000, but it seems pretty competitive throughout. We are 1/3 of the way through this event. We know I don't think Paco has participated in any of the games yet, but they actually could still come back if they show up and start playing. Let's go ahead and check out Sora's rematch. We see a Mystic Dealer cycle. Keeping a monster in attack mode is not that big of a deal against the Demon deck, as we are expecting a Hill Tuning invasion at any time. And that is going to flip up the monsters anyway. We see them tribute off an invasion for another invasion, but I don't actually agree with this play. I think just having the 2 invasions on board is generally a better idea, especially if you're running into 2 copies of a card like Strange Cat that you are able to just swing over for the full damage anyway. There's no point in getting rid of one of your boss monsters to destroy 0 attack point monsters. Welcome, Chenyu. Hope you're having a good time. Demon is switching the Shadow Buyer to defense mode. This might be to be able to activate the skill again, but we don't know for sure. They set a monster. And 3 back row. Invasion swings in for 1,300. But both players do have 3 trap cards. Sword and Shield protects the dealer. But Sora is complaining about the deck sucking in the chat, so I'm gonna guess they didn't draw any bosses. We see the 3rd cat go to the grave. And another dealer trying desperately to find a boss. Oh, but they do actually get a 7-zone magician at the last minute. More back row and 7-zone magician, buffing itself up. Talismanic Sailor is going to bring that invasion down to just 900 attack points, allowing any of the monsters on Sora's board to clear. This helps mitigate the threat of Demon's widespread ruins. Swinging into the Shadow Buyer first is fine. The widespread ruin activates and invasion goes down, but Demon is still at 5,200 life points. Could be difficult to mount this comeback if you are Sora. A heavy metal is threatening to end the game at any time. And here is the heavy metals. With a shield and sword, either attack going through is going to end it. And Demon picks up a win. Is Thunder still good? I would say yes. Definitely a relatively easy King of Games climb with it. We haven't been seeing it win as many tournaments, but I attribute this mostly to the limited pool of players. And a lot of the players do just prefer running other decks. So that is mostly why we haven't seen it. It still has some top cut representation though. Notably, Thunders were not hit at all on the ban list. And there haven't really been that many new cards to change the meta. So I don't see any reason why Thunder would be bad now. Duckbill grabbing a Trigger Drago. If Manarchus has a 0 defense point monster on the board, this could be game. And they concede. I want to go see how Zid is doing. And we see 2 tribute sets from Wu. And Zid does the same. Neither player trying to make a big push. Unfortunately for Zid, 2-3 full Torn of the Windweavers are going to flip over that board. We know the board is going to be mostly level 2 normal monsters. Oh, and they actually managed to set 2 back row as well. Unfortunately, they did flip up a 2,500 attack point monster rather than the Harpy Spec Dragon, meaning the Torna is unable to clear that card. Torna the Wind Weaver is going to do a bunch of position changing, but then they bring in the 7-Zone Magician. And this could actually be a mistake. Keeping all of the Tornas around for maximal push potential seems like a better idea. Basically, I would try to get out a double Magician lethal. But I might be miscalculating the number of cards needed. And it appears that it does work out. Light Sorcerer and 2 Magicians are able to swing into an empty board. But of course, the double block is going to shut that down. Still, Zid is at 1500 life. Unless they can draw into the maximum monster and a Pierce, they are in a ton of danger. That said, we know all 3 Torna the Wind Weaver are down. This deck is very unlikely to be running any additional ways to get to Zid's life points. Recital keeps Zid safe for another turn. Setting a couple more cards, and they are ready to go. Another double block. And with only 9 cards left, Zid is probably going to start banking on the max soon. We do see the Harpy Lady Sisters coming in. But do they have the Pierce? That would be a good reason to set the other monsters over the 7-Zone Magician. But they do not Pierce. And this gives Whoop a chance to clear the maximum. Whoop sets a lone monster. And this makes sense. The Harpies are able to attack all of the monsters Whoop controls. So by just setting a single monster, they prevent drawing extra cards, and they are just going to mill out Zid's deck. Zid really need to be able to Pierce on the turn they summon that maximum. But I think their back row may have been a bunch of traps. So we see Sora is on the maximum Overlord skill now. They've switched to the sleeves, the playmat, and the skill. Will it be able to take out the one and only Royal Rebels though? Howtuning Invasion, flipping up a 7-Zone Magician. And with Invasion and Shadowfire, Sora's life points are looking rather low. The Widespread Ruin is a great card to save them some life, but it might not even be the right play. Rebel decks are traditionally only running Ghost Cyclone, and lowering your own life points is fine as an Overload player. We see the swing in. And this board is a little bit resilient. The 1900 attack point monster is immune to Invasion's destruction, and Heavy Metal won't be getting as big of a boost as possible. If Sora has a Recital face down, they are able to keep their monster alive. And they do. Welcome, Penguin. A Maximum Overlord is able to debuff that Heavy Metal to the spot where the level 10 is able to clear it. We see a Ghost Cyclone followed by a Shield and Sword, reducing the Magnum to 0. But Demon is filling their back row. No monsters to help with this push. With 5 back row confirmed, I think Demon B is already running more than I have in total. And if there are any more in the deck, I can definitely see why it is bricky. Sora clears out the game with a maximum summon. Alright, and Paco has burst onto the scene. Finished up with their prior plans and are here to see if they can make a comeback later into the event. With Twin Dragon, I think it is safe to say they are on Resonance today. Dragon Merchant into a Dragonic Slayer. This is going to let them destroy one of their back row cards. And this might be what you need to counter this deck. Clean back row removal prevents the double block from putting in any work at all. As if you want to keep all of your cards in hand and rely on the trap cards, Slayer is going to run right through those boards. And here comes a second Slayer. I don't think Zid has any chance of winning this game unless they hard draw the maximum right now. We see Dragius, and they might not even get the chance. With Twin Edge Dragon, there are 5 attacks available on this board. And with Dragius and Slayer, both able to swing in directly, I don't think even a Widespread Rune would stop this. It would still be 4,000 damage. And Zid concedes. Let's take a look at this one. Both players are using the Golden Yuga profile icon. Turn to Dragius. Always a great start. But the Widespread Ruin is going to mitigate that significantly. And with a swing into an Arching Soldier, Yagi only manages to clear a lone monster. Fako is now in a pretty solid position, especially given that Yagi has no cards in hand. This Trigger Drago is getting in for the full 2,900, 3,200 piercing damage. And Yagi is at such low life points that there isn't a way for them to clear this board without putting themselves in lethal danger. And Yagi concedes. Let's see if Paco is able to seal another win. And first up the leaderboard. another turn to Dragias, but as a lone monster, it isn't nearly as threatening. Yagi had to set a Stormbolt Destroyer, meaning there's almost certainly another boss monster already in hand. We see the Trigger Drago coming down, and this is a way to clear the Dragias, as long as that trap card is not relevant. And the attack does go through. Paco down to 3,500. Shield and Sword is activated, reducing both monsters by a fairly considerable amount. Slugger is on board, but I don't think... Oh, we have actually seen a picture. If Paco gets out a double boss board here, it could be pretty threatening. We would basically want to see a Slayer into a Phoenix Dragon. Phoenix Dragon could put in work as well. Two of them, not quite as good, but still good enough. And we see a mistake. Well, I guess you could argue it isn't. But this Twin-Edged Dragon is unable to attack because they use the Sports Dragon's effect. Had they used the skill to boost up both Twin-Edged Dragons, they would have been able to get in 4 more damage. But they would have had to give up a Twin-Edged Dragon in order to secure the attack. As Trigger Drago... Wait, no, Trigger Drago only had 1,500. And the Slayer could have just walked in. Paco not punished though, despite missing out on an extra 1,000 damage. We see Merchant, but they don't choose to buff the Twin-Edged Dragon. I suppose they don't need to, as this is game. Alright, let's see how Moosh is doing. Moosh was in first place when we checked previously. Demon starts off with a traditional set 3. Moosh is on Thunder, and keeps their own board low to the ground as well. A clean clear, though an invasion is fairly threatening. Moosh has no back row to protect them from a big attack. And we see Demon is stuck with another high-level monster in hand. Otherwise, they probably would have gotten in with the Shadow Buyer. A second invasion. And that is going to do it. Demon claims a quick victory. We are almost 2/3 of the way through the event. Let's do one more game before going and taking a water break. Notably, after the end of the point battle, we do still have a top 4 bracket that we will be using based on the results of the room. Alright, Maniac is going in with a pretty weak turn 1 board, presumably due to missing with the Essel. Halting Invasion, flipping everything up. Invasion, ready to clear the board. But Zid could still double block here. Rogue of Archfiend is being activated, but is that even necessary? I guess we won't know, since they wouldn't activate the Widespread Ruin if they had it. Dark Sword Magician coming in for a little bit. And with 2500 attack, the invasion falls. Heavy Metal coming in. And absorbing the Dark Sword Magician. Shadowbuyer also going up to level 6, but not quite enough to attack with. Though it seems it does not matter, as Zid has the Recital to block this out. Shadowbuyer using the effect one more time before Invasion comes down. And this is without activating the skill. But they don't have any monsters. So double block is a complete negate. Arching Soldier and a couple of level 2s are just simply going to try swinging in. We know the Widespread Ruin is going to clear out that Arching Soldier, but Zid knows. Manarch's face down card has 0 defense, allowing them to swing in with the Grace Princess Kana. Shadowbuyer again, and this one will become level 7 after using its effect. Though it seems it is going to be tributed off. Invasion swings in for 2300. Heltoning Invasion, flipping up the Grace Princess once again. And by keeping the board thin, Manarchus is never at risk of losing to the maximum monster. Unless they just randomly flip a shield and sword, and buff it up high enough. Double block, once again, setting that invasion to defense mode. Setting even more monsters. And a monster reincarnation is probably grabbing another invasion. Just as expected, we see invasion going to hand. Currybot and flip them up. Tribute Summon, and we will be seeing another potential lethal push. And finally, Zid has run out of trap cards. And loses this round. Let's take a look at the standings. Fako has claimed first place over Moosh by 200 points. Though Moosh has notably gained 300 points since the last time we checked. Additionally, despite joining late, Paco is tied for 5th and is only a single win away from the first place position. With this, we are going to take a short water break. I will be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned, we'll finish out the point battle and then go into the top 4 cut. Alright, and we are back. Let's go ahead and see what we are missing. We know Paco is competing for a top position. So let's see how they are doing against Whoop, who has switched over to an archive skill. We see a Dragon Merchant, though I would not be expecting to see its effect here. As expected, they hold a card in hand. Presumably some kind of 2-2 beat monster that they didn't want to spend all of their resources on. Cyclone is going to be able to take out the Talismanic Seal Array. And even more, it will draw Whoop an extra card. Speed of Reformer boosting up the Harpy Lady, before summoning out a second one. Talismanic Seal Array to debuff the Gravity Press Dragon, down to just 300 attack. And that is a pretty significant swing from Whoop. Paco is technically still in the game. As we know, they do have a boss monster in hand, though whether it is Dragius or Slayer that they need is largely dependent on what Whoop's back row is. We see another Dragon Merchant, and let's see a trap card. It is the one and only Widespread Ruin. Talismanic Seal Array only going to debuff by 1,000, much less devastating against the Harpy Lady Sisters than it is against a Gravity Press Dragon. That said, it is still good enough to clear the board, but Paco's down to just 2,200. Whoop sets 3, and this is where a Dragius or Twin-Edged Dragon can really put in effort. Twin-Edged Dragon activates its effect. Resonating Ward destroys the back row, and we're going to see a big swing here. Twin-Edged Dragon clearing out defense position monsters, and 2,800 damage from Paco. We've seen multiple Talismanic Seal Array, so the odds of the Widespread Ruin get ever higher. Whoop concedes with the trap card being flipped. Alright, D&B versus Manarchus. It looks like both of the Rebel players have managed to find each other. Putting out a Feral Imp in attack mode in order to trigger this skill. Ditching a Ghost Cyclone in the process seems reasonable if you have a bunch of other monsters you'd rather be summoning. And they set a card face down as well. 2,300 damage is a pretty solid burst. I haven't been keeping track of Demon's deck list, but if this is a Babysitter Goat, they're in a good position. Unfortunately, it is a Nessus. So the Heavy Metal is getting in for significantly more than 2,500 damage. We see a 3,300 swing alongside 2 back row. Demon B is going to need to draw into Ghost Cyclones if they want to safely clear this board. Shadowbuyer going to the grave. With only one monster on Manarchus' board, Shadowbuyer is unable to reach the level 7 threshold that it needs. Invasion wiping out the Heavy Metal. And a Rogue of Archfiend to protect from Widespread. It is good enough. Had that been a Heavy Metal, the game would have been over. But now, with no back row to save them, Demon B loses to a Heavy Metal. And with Monster Reincarnation being activated and grabbing anything else, I think this game is going to be over. here it comes. Royal Rebels, heavy metal, swinging in for 4,800 damage. With Paco winning the previous game that we've spectated, this could be a battle for first place. Moosh and Riv are both at pretty solid thresholds. Moosh brings in a Stormbolt Destroyer to establish a pretty solid board. The Trigger Drago is good. They don't need any piercing damage, but they choose not to gain the extra 300. Perhaps Moosh is a little bit too afraid of milling an important spell or trap card. Oh, and thank you for the follow. Nephilis. Monetary Dragon Dragius coming down. They're going to need a Talisman Auxiliary, which they already have set. They shuffle back in all of the low-level monsters, and this makes sense. If they are running Phoenix Dragon in any capacity, keeping the Slayer in grave is a fine move. Paco manages to get a board clear, but Shield and Sword is going to end this game immediately. I was gonna say, there is no way this isn't over. I got faked out by the double set, but the Tribute Summon does go ahead and seal the deal. Alright, we see a Stormbolt Destroyer against Sias's set 3. Switchbolt Lizard and Arching Soldier make for a pretty solid attacking front, plus back row. However, this is a Thunder Mirror match, and having no cards in hand can be a liability. We see a Ghost Cyclone, and with exactly 3 monsters, Sias is able to draw an extra card. Trailblazing Thunderblast responds in kind, destroying a Talisman Auxiliary. Trigger Drago comes down, and Angry Coilfish is going to let them clear the board one more time. And this time, Yagi has a card in hand, meaning no piercing damage to worry about. Duckbill comes out, but I don't think we have seen any high-level monsters from their board, so both Duckbills get treated off right away. Trigger Drago boosting to 2800. And milling the sword and shield. 1100 damage is fine. But sometimes having the extra monster zone open can be a huge liability. Sure, the Trigger Drago is able to pierce for 2800 if you have no cards in hand, but attacking directly is essentially the same thing. So against a double Trigger Drago board, it would have been even worse. We see a significant push coming out from Yagi. And realistically, I think without a Shield and Sword coming down, outing a board like this is going to be fairly difficult. Stormbolt Destroyer could theoretically get you somewhere, but I think you'd still need a little bit of extra juice. the debuff from Lightning Trigger is not going to be enough. We see two 1500s. Stone Destroyer coming out as expected. But will they go in attack or defense? Presumably defense mode. Unless they have a Seal Array hidden away. Angry Coilfish coming down, and Lightning Trigger going to debuff the Trigger Drago. The other one is changed to defense, but it doesn't seem to do anything. Stone Destroyer getting in for a measly 600 damage. As long as Yagi is able to establish a board, the game will end. Unless the trap card is able to save it. After the summon of another boss monster, they go ahead and concede as the battle is essentially done. And it looks like the only game going on right now is Sora versus Paco. And we see a Harpy deck from Sora, switching it up one more time. Sora definitely, more than anyone, I think, has been taking advantage of the ability to change the decks. We see an Essel. Presumably milling to try to set up the Harpy Lady Sisters. But it whiffs. Also, we saw this Trick Pigeon discard a Widespread Ruin, which does make sense given the matchup. Dragonic Slayer is going to be able to pop the Widespread Ruins, so getting rid of them with the Trick Pigeon is a totally reasonable play. Sora brings in a Harpy Lady, presumably going into a tribute monster, as otherwise these monsters are not going to be doing much of anything. If they actually manage to draw in another 2 bosses, that is somewhat impressive. But it looks like probably not. Hysteric Force is still going to let you clear through the board, but funnily enough, this is a board where the barrier would be able to stop any of these given attacks. Of course, Paco is not running any copies of the barrier. Though Widespread Ruin is going to do just as well, minus a couple of 100 life points that the barrier would have inflicted. Twin-Edged Dragon coming down at 1500, and the duel ends. Sora concedes. And as we head into the final stretch, How are our points standing? Paco has managed to come over half an hour late into the event and claim first place with just 15 minutes left to go before top cut. Moosh maintaining their position around the top tables, and Manarchus is doing quite well as well. However, these players in 3rd and 4th do need to watch out, as a single win by Demon or Wu could change the tides. Zid apparently, despite their best attempt to bring in Tornado Draw Harpies, are sitting at 0 points. Meaning the experimental deck did not seem to work out. Let's go ahead and view what Faco is up to. Manaka says he wasn't late, he was simply watching the games to gain info. Okay, that's interesting. Especially since some players have been changing their deck around. And I'm pretty sure Paco was going to be running Resonance anyway. So I'm not sure that they really gained a whole lot from that. Unless they found some odd tech trap cards. I just assumed Paco was still like in school. And then it just finished up or got off the bus or something. Ancient Forces with a Dragius on board. Unfortunately, that Rising Light Angel Essel is going to run into a Piercing Samurai and be unable to clear, causing Faco to go from a potential 2600 damage turn to nothing. Perhaps playing it safe would have been better and get in for a guaranteed 1000. They take 1500 on the rebound. And not only do they have to deal with a Trigger Drago, but 3 back row cards. It looks like Faco does not draw a single high-level monster, and Widespread Ruin leaves them vulnerable. We see another back row to replace the Widespread Ruin that was just activated, and a Stormbolt Destroyer to revive the Coilfish. This keeps 2 cards in hand for follow-up plays, while also getting in for apparently no damage at all, as Faco activates a copy of the Guard, returning to Burning Blaze Dragon into the deck. Now, if they are on Ancient Arise Dragon, this could be an issue, as there is now no Burning Blaze Dragon in the grave. However, we see an Ancient Forces activate, and Burning Blaze Dragon is here, unfortunately. Sword and Shield is going to bring it down to just 1000 attack. And once again, the monster has fallen. And another 2800 direct. Faco is in danger. Ghost Cyclone is going to be able to destroy a card, but it doesn't seem quite good enough. Clear Ice Dragon, going up to 2600. But even a Thunder Spark could destroy this card. It looks like it manages to hang on for now, but now we have to worry about Talismanic Seal Array, which could easily blow through the Clear Ice Dragon and end the game. They draw a card, and they do have 6 in hand, as they didn't even need to play a card last turn. Duckbill summoned. and Fako has nothing in hand. Duckbill reviving the Trigger Drago can lead to a pretty significant push here. And we see the concede immediately. Let's go ahead and see how Yagi versus Bungle is going. A set 3 pass, but it is a little bit underwhelming to not even have a full board. We see a double Essel, but all they find is an Archene Soldier, rather than another boss. That said, Stormbolt Destroyer is going to fill out this board nicely. And Essel has managed to mill some cards for the Stormbolt Destroyer, at the low cost of losing a spell trap removal. Hammer Crush Deal is activated, but there are no targets for the Hammer Crush. And that is part of why I like Hammer Crush Deal, but I don't like cards like Thunder Blast. If you don't have any spell trap cards on the opponent's field, the Thunder Blast is always a brick, but the Hammer Crush is able to replace itself and kind of just stick around for later. Being able to turn a spell or trap card into another relevant boss or another low-level monster is incredibly useful. Duckbill, reviving Stormbolt. Stormbolt is going to be able to clear the Dragius thanks to the buff from Lightning Trigger. However, Bungle does still have a face-down card, one that isn't a Hammer Crush. However, it doesn't seem to do anything, and they are able to swing in. Duckbill goes down, and 1500 Direct connects. Thunder Aggro is looking rough against the pure Thunder deck. I ended with Talismanic Seal Ray and Shield and Sword. This is looking like it could have been a chance to win. Unfortunately, they do not find a single other low-level monster. With only 500 life points, they are unable to close it out. But then, Yagi also fails to find a way to clear this Dragius. And with 2 Hammer Crush, the game is over. An incredible end of the duel that I was not expecting at all. It looks like this might be the final game we spectate before we set up the top cut. A fairly strong demon board without needing to use the skill at all. SL mills some cards, presumably looking for a Duckbill target. They do find it, but then they use a second copy of Essel, which mills the Widespread Ruin for what appears to be no reason. A Widespread Ruin from a demon keeps their board safe. Invasion falls to an Essel thanks to the shield and sword. But, Demon fails to find any high-level monster at all. Lightning trigger is activating. And this does represent a lethal push if Demon has nothing remaining. This is an odd sequence though, as Recital now gets a ton of value. However, Demon does not have one. And we will go ahead and take a look at the rankings. Bungle at 5,000 points. Riv at 48. Tied with Sias. Then Moosh at 46. There is one game remaining. Manarchist and Fako. Manarchist is in 6th place. Fako is out of contention, but if Manarchist gains 1,000 points, they will climb from 6th place all the way to 1st, cutting out Moosh from the top cut. However, in order to do so, they also need to finish the game before this moment. We'll check one more time, and it looks like Manarchist was unable to finish the game and get the results in a Pegasus VCR moment, Manarchist has been denied a top 4 spot. Let me go ahead and set up the bracket. Let me head over to the announcements channel and set up this. And it is going to take them a couple of minutes to submit deck lists, etc. So I'm going to go ahead, set up a duel room for them to participate in. And then while we wait for them to settle in for the finals, I will go ahead and grab some water once the duel room is made. And we will be back in just a couple of minutes. we are waiting for them to join the room. Realized I missed a few chat messages. Welcome back, Blitzforce and SG. Sorry, Manicus, that you were unable to finish that game in time. I know it can be frustrating, though I do think part of it is the size of the event. If we had more players participating, we would be able to have the matches queued up quicker. I'm not quite sure how we actually expand the reach. Maybe we need to try getting some Japanese players in here. But I know these events start very, very late for them. Blitzforce, we are currently doing the top cut of the tournament. But I can play a couple of games afterwards, before I go onto the King of Games run. Apparently, I got a message request. Alright, and that means we have 3 of the 4 players with deck submitted. Just waiting. For the 4th player to submit their deck as well. And I'm going to assume that was not a concede. Okay. Yeah, we will not be counting that as game 1 of the best of 3. Yeah, Manicus, I agree. I think in every event, there's been 1 or 2 people who show up a couple of minutes before or right after the event and aren't able to join the room because of the way Duel Links works. I really wish players were able to just join the room because, like Paco, not dueling for the first half hour and making top cut. There's no reason for a player not to be able to join in 5 minutes after the event starts. Something I have been doing is I did start the stream a few minutes before the event and I did post the Duel Room code in the stream startup. But apparently that was not quite enough to get them into the room because it probably takes people a couple of minutes to find the stream anyway. I don't think everyone who watches the stream is going to immediately click on it the second I go live. So maybe I do need to just stream for about half an hour beforehand. And I can do some King of Games, duels, etc. while letting people know to join the room in advance. That's something I might start. Oh, wait. I shouldn't have a high delay, as far as I know. I did have it at one point, but I have turned it off. It shouldn't be more than, like, 15 seconds. The games themselves are delayed because I'm not joining right at the start of the game. I'm seeing the list of games that are existing and then clicking on one and starting it from the start. How long is it before you send a chat message that it pops up on the screen? And while you answer that, let me go ahead and actually commentate this game. Is what I would say if it was not ending on turn 3. An incredible push from Moosh to claim the lead. Okay, and Klaus says that the delay is only a few seconds, which is what it should be. And then JD says it's a good idea to stream a little bit ahead of time going forward. So I will probably do that. Maybe I start with, well, I don't want to start with a duel room myself, because then people might be in that room instead of the point battle room, which would be a bad plan. So I'll just do a normal-ish stream for a little bit beforehand. Alright, and we see Moosh open with a set 5. Here comes an Essel, and they find Barrel Dragon. An incredible mill. Will it hit? Unfortunately for Bungle, they get no heads, though I'm sure Moosh is very happy to see that. Rolling into a Barrel Dragon off of the Essel, into the Destruction, into a Dragius would probably be a little bit much. Renica says, to be fair, even though the timeout situation does suck, if the Stodduk wasn't there, other players who had played against the Stodduk as well may have earned more points, which is also fair. I do think it is a little bit, I basically just wish Duel Links gave us more control over the point battles. I'd like people to be able to join the room before it, or to join the room after it starts, and I'd also like duels that start before the time limit to count. But I don't have a way to control either of those things in the system. Alright, and Storm Destroyer is coming down. Dragius debuffed, but there is no way to destroy the Barrel Dragon alongside it. And that is going to be devastating for Moosh's board state if this Barrel Dragon lands a heads. But it whiffs a second time. And Penguin, sure, you can join after we finish up the tournament proceedings. We will do a short duel room, so anyone else who wants to duel can come in and play for a little bit. And then we will proceed over to our King of Games climb. And we see another Dragius coming down. Milling the Widespread Ruin is always a bad start, and then they get punished with a Widespread Ruin and a Sword and Shield. Bungle concedes. Moosh has the perfect back row to stop what should have been a pretty dominating looking opening turn with Essel into Barrel Dragon into Dragius. Even that was not enough to stop the Thunders. Right, so Paco is presumably still on that same resonance list. Twin-Edged Dragon plus Dragorite. Dragonic Slayer, and this is going to be a board clear should a trap card not get in the way. Slayer has a 50-50 chance, or maybe even a 0% chance if there are no trap cards. Either way, even if Widespread Ruin is the face down, destroying that shield and sword is actually a little bit more impactful, as shield and sword is removal for both of these monsters. And we see a board clear going through normally. So it looks like we have 2 Thunder decks in the top 4, alongside Aggro and Resonance. But will this be good enough? We've seen one Thunder deck convert over Aggro. Will the Thunders meet in the finals? There are no cards in Paco's hand, making that Thunder Gazelle go from a card that usually does nothing into a mega threat. Essel could use the effect to try to mill a boss monster, but it looks like they don't go for it. Gazelle, providing piercing to the Coilfish, presumably before a tribute summon. As if this is the extent of the board, they're in a bad spot. But of course they do have the Stormbolt Destroyer, who is going to revive a Surge Bolt Lizard. And now Twin-Edged Dragon loses 300 attack and Slayer goes to defense mode. They are thinking, but I'm not sure what that final card could be to warrant the decision making. I mean, even if it is a Trigger Draco, I'm not sure you'd really want to summon it here. Why would they concede? It is possible that was a connection issue, but it wasn't a lethal push on board either. So I think we have to give it to Paco. And it looks like that ties up the series. That's gotta be a rough one. They were in a very strong spot. But the game wasn't over, so we can't adjudicate the win. We'll have to let it stand. Game 3, whenever they reconnect. Or, of course, if they aren't able to reconnect at all, that would be an issue as well. We will give them a couple of minutes. Otherwise, we do just advance to the finals. And we'll give Paco the win. We'll give them 2 more minutes to get back in the room. Alright, and I think they've made it. Just in time. Let's go ahead and see how Game 3 winds up. Alright, and Paco is up first. Looks like their hand is nothing special. Essel, will it find a boss monster? No, but it does find widespread ruin. Pretty bad mills all around. They do at least take the summon of the duckbill to get an extra body for treat summoning. And that makes sense. Stormbolt Destroyer is coming in, but there are no normal monsters in the grave. Piercing Samurai can get in for some damage, though there is a small chance they run into a card like Triad Drago, which is unable to clear, which Piercing Samurai is unable to clear. Heading into battle. Notably, there is a much higher chance they find a zero defense monster like the Twin-Edged Dragon or Dragorite and get in for 1200. A Sports Dragon is in the grave, as is a Phoenix Dragon, and it looks like Piercing Samurai would have been able to clear any of these three monsters, though they did choose the only zero defense monster on the board, putting them off to a pretty solid start. And without a boss monster, Paco is forced to set 3 again. Piercing Samurai going in, but will Paco have mixed up their set positions? Piercing Samurai goes across the board and lands another devastating 1200 blow. Dragorite also at 0. And finally, we see they did put the monster with some defense in front of the Samurai, which makes sense. However, what they really need to do is find some cards. Dragorite coming down. Triad Drago presumably is going to be able to draw a card here. But the question is whether or not they already have the boss monster, or if this is a Hail Mary attempt. Alright, and here comes the one and only Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius, milling their own widespread ruin as well. Both players finding it on the top of their decks when searching for other cards. Phoenix Dragon and Triad Drago back in the deck are both great tools for later. And this is a full board clear, though Paco is keeping a card in hand as insurance against the Thunder player. That being said, if that is a low-level monster in Paco's hand, I disagree with the play. I know the Dragorite is worth 0 defense for piercing, but so is having an empty slot on the board. A direct attack is just as bad as swinging in over a 0 defense point monster. And if they instead have a Stormbolt Destroyer, they get a direct attack when they wouldn't have been able to pierce anyway. Though we have seen a Thunder Gazelle, so it is a little bit more threatening. We do know they are running additional cards that benefit off of the 0 cards in hand, so that might change the math a little bit. But we are sitting here for a while. I am a little bit concerned that they disconnected again. what will they do? And they do actually manage to summon a monster. They are still here. Search Bolt Lizard and Gazelle coming in. Though, as Paco did keep a card in hand, the Gazelle is not going to do much of anything. Trigger Drago coming down. That is able to clear the Dragias, but they're going to need more than that if they want to win the game. A Magician's Valkyria out of nowhere. Lightning Trigger to debuff. Dragias. Okay. I wonder if that actually is the most damage possible. I'd have to go through and do the math, which I am not going to. Alright, another set 3. Paco has not been drawing very well this event at all. Or this game is what I meant to say. Another Piercing Samurai could end it. But they set 2 and battle. Merchant going down. And I'm expecting this to be a clean clear. If a trap card didn't activate on the first 2 attacks, presumably it isn't happening on these ones either. Notably, we do not have a Widespread Ruin on either board. If the face down card was a Dragonic Pressure, they would be in a pretty good spot. But it's also pretty likely to just be a Talismanic Seal Array at this point, which presents a pretty similar amount of damage. They could Resonance here for the draw with Triad Drago, but it does look kind of awkward. As if they use Dragonic Resonance now, they aren't going to be able to buff up a different monster. And we see Gravity Fest Dragon coming in to allow the Triad Drago to draw a card. But if they don't have a Slayer or Dragias also in hand, the Triad Drago becomes a huge liability. We do see Dragonic Slayer coming in. But this is still not enough. And I'm pretty sure, despite what Manarchus says, that Paco is probably going to lose this one. If the face down card was the Shield and Sword, they would have had it with switching this to 0, swinging in for 2,800, and then swinging in for 13 this way. As we know, both the Sword and Shield and the Widespread are done. But if this is the Shield and Sword, it is way too late to activate it at this point. Paco appears to be thinking. Alright, Resonance is activated. One card is down, and it is a Talismanic Seal Ray. But I don't think that's lethal. $1,100. Gaudy Crest is 700 more. But that's still only 1,600 and 1,300. And with no cards left in hand, things are looking quite bad. 300 off. And there we go. No other cards need to be summoned. This is game. And despite the disconnect, Paco has advanced to the finals. Let's go ahead and let them know to queue for the finals. I'm pretty sure Moosh was the previous winner. Moosh and Sias. Okay. Unfortunately, despite the miracle run through the point battle, Paco has been eliminated. Let's go ahead and get into the finals. Argentine Soldier and Surgical Lizard in attack mode. An interesting plan. For the Thunder Mirror match we have in the finals. Ghost Cyclone activating and destroying the shield and sword while replacing itself. Off to a great start. But off to a much worse start than I could have imagined. Whether that was a disconnect or a 4 level 7 monster hand, we will have to ask them later. But after the Ghost Cyclone, they immediately concede. Oh, I did forget about the vote. I don't really have anything to spend the channel points on, but if you send me a message in my Discord, I will try to set that up sometime over the next week. There's not really anything to gain from the gambling at this point. And given how quick that first game was, it feels a little bit like a bad decision to set up a poll now. A double Stormbolt field on turn 2, all thanks to Essel, plus a Piercing Samurai to get through whatever that final card is. The full 1,200 connects, followed by 900 and a 2,400 direct attack. despite the quick game 1. This series is not over. A commanding lead is going to be tough to come back from. Their own Stonebolt Destroyer is not going to be enough on its own. Especially if it is the lone monster on the board. Another boss monster should finish this out. Even if it is a widespread ruin. And we see the concede. This has been a blitz-paced finals. But I believe it is 1-1. And it is. Game 3 can start whenever they are ready. But it looks like Undernoxo does need a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I did say after this final match, we will do a little bit of Duel Room. So if anyone wants to join, I will go ahead and set up this. Obviously, I won't actually be playing any of the games until after the finals are completed. But we will go ahead and let players trickle in if they want to set up at the tables. In the meantime, I will also set my own deck. As we go, I'll probably play some Resonance. Well, actually, I do have some decks I want to try out to see which one would be better for my King of Games challenge this time. I'm considering either a singleton type deck list or maybe something that doesn't use any cards that have ever been on the limited list. And then anything else. Oh, I do also have a one boss aqua deck, which could be fun to try. Oh, or imports only, which is only cards you can find in the TCG. I mean, the Harvey Lady Sisters are a little bit different, but still pretty good. Anyway, my deck has been set for later. And now we can just wait for Moosh and Under to be ready. I'm assuming we are simply waiting for them to restart the game or try to get into a better connection. Bum, bum, ba, bum. As while we wait, I will explain some of my deck lists I've been building lately. So I thought a singleton challenge could be pretty interesting. And for it, I just went with a pretty generic aggro build. We have gained, over time, a ton of different 1500 attack point vanillas, so I'm running as many of those as possible. Then, to offer some form of consistency, I have a small dinosaur engine in here with Urabi, Little D, and Mammoth Graveyard. That is 3 potential targets, all for 1 card. And then I'm also running the 3 Harpy Lady Sisters, as they all have some form of useful effect. Monster Immunity does come up in the Royal Bubbles matchup. The left side is always good against Widespread Ruin if you don't have another boss monster on board. And the middle piece can shuffle back cards like the Tyhone, Harpy Lady, or Faithbird to gain a bit of attack. The rest are just generic 2500 attack point solid monsters. And then we have Essel to potentially mill into one of our high roll limit 3 cards. And a lot of the deck is then focused on letting our monsters clear opposing 2500s. Light Sorcerer Sanctity and Pseudo Reformer buff and debuff respectively. Monster Reincarnation over Shield and Sword because we have singletons, so being able to recur a card is pretty important. Of course, the Tricky Drago itself is here for its ability to do so. Twin Dragon and Piercing Samurai can help us get through set 3 boards. And Sword and Shield can help us protect ourselves from opposing boss monsters. I also have this Aqua deck where I wanted to run Disco Fever with no boss monsters. But you actually do need to have at least 1 level 5 or higher monster in the deck. Oddly enough. Other than that, the idea is that we summon out Kanan and La Moon and then just use them to beat over the opponent's board. And for that reason, we do have 3 Triple Threat Thunder. We have Triple Threat Thunder, 3 Talismanic Seal Array, and the Tribute to the Doomed to clear over. 1000 Attack Rocket is able to boost up the Bubbly Elf before activating Disco Fever, turning it into a 2500 attack point monster on its own. And we don't have any limit 3s, so we just run King's Majesty as well. I think this deck is better than it seems, but I would kind of like another way to debuff them with a spell card. Maybe the Shield and Sword would be good. Or the Tribute to the Doomed. I'm not sure. Or maybe even like Rightful Magic could be useful in this deck. Anyway, let's see if they have finished their preparation. Alright, and it looks like the finals are indeed going on. And this is Game 3, the final match. And it looks like a set 4 is a solid opener. However, a Ghost Cyclone is going to remove that Talismanic Seal Array and give them extra juice. Stonebolt Destroyer and an Angler Coilfish in the graveyard, allowing them to revive a monster. Plus they have 2 back row of their own. No fear about going down to 0 cards in hand against the opposing Thunder player. Tricky Drago is strong, but it isn't able to deal with a Widespread Ruin that could be lurking in the back row. Stonebolt Destroyer revives an Angler Coilfish. And Clapping Thunder, unfortunately, is not going to be able to draw them a card here. No traps activated. Shield and Sword, reducing that Search Bolt Lizard down to 0. Piercing Samurai, not super helpful given the current board state. Mission Valkyria, also fine, at best. Essel, milling 2 cards to set up a Talismanic Seal array. Despite not having a boss monster, they managed to make it work. Stormbolt Destroyer down to 200, and Surge Bolt Lizard at 0. This board is cleared. And there is still 2 back row for Moosh to have to contend with. We know they are running the Trailblazing, but they actually concede. What could have possibly been in their hand for a finish like that? And that is going to conclude the tournament portion of the stream. If anyone would like to play against my deck, I am up for some games. And we will see how it goes. And then after I play everyone 1 or 2 times, we will probably go ahead and hop onto the ladder. Thank you everyone who participated in the point battle, and we will be running it again at the same time next week. So make sure to tune in for that one. Or sign up if it is something that you are interested in participating in. And I am up first. Could be Harpies, could be Aggro, could be Thunder. Not a lot of things for us to go off of here. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and set 3. I can keep this for later, which I definitely will. Alright, Thunder the Thunder coming down, but it's not going to be able to use its effect, as I have no face-up monsters on the board. That said, Thunder the Thunder has definitely fallen out of favor. This card was a staple upon the game's release, but now we have Light Sorcerer Sanctity, which does basically the same thing, but better, for less. We see a Torn of the Windweaver, but whatever they flip up is not going to deal a ton of damage. Oh yeah, if anyone wants to join the Discord server, and has not already, I will go ahead and drop a link. And then if anyone wants to join my personal Discord server, which is not where we run the events, those are in the description of the Twitch channel and YouTube video. Alright, we see them swing in without actually using Torna's effect, which means we take no damage. Paco, I'm assuming that's a joke, but why would I be running 2 different Discord servers? I know some people have gotten it confused, but I assume those people probably don't know that I have my own server. Anyway, we drew into dinosaurs and King Rex, so this works out perfectly. We can just go ahead, summon these, activate the effect, bring back the Urabi. And oh no, we have milled the right side. My plan was to tornado draw into the maximum on a future turn, but now I don't think that's going to be happening. We also don't really have enough for us to shuffle them back in. So what I can do instead is actually tribute the Surabi for the left side. And while tornado draw may be offline, I can summon the sisters on a future turn and shuffle away the other 2 pieces. And in fact, I think I will do that now. This will give us an extra 500 points of damage. And clear our hand. And give us some more boss monsters that we can draw into on a future turn. Let's boost up here. battle, and swing. I'm gonna clear out Thunder the Thunder, of course, since that one is actually able to debuff us. And we don't want an errant Dragius to come down. You know what? Now that we're talking about servers, I just realized I never actually sent out the stream announcement today. Though I assume at this point, anyone who's in my Discord server probably does know that I run events on Fridays. So I assume I'm not missing out on a ton of potential viewers. But I mean, like, Paco, you know for sure that the event is happening. Is kind of what I was getting at. And I'm sure Renegade and anyone else who wanted to watch would have known too. Alright, we see a recovery force. But they don't have anything here. And we draw into the monster reincarnation alongside another piece of the harpy, which is pretty funny. So I guess we just set, and build our board. Let's activate effect. Mill a card to get that extra damage in. And battle. Swing over the Mystic Dealer. And clear out this board. With only 2,000 life points left, we should be in a pretty good spot. Unless they drop a Magnum Overlord on us. I guess that is now something we need to start paying attention to. There's a chance they just drop it this turn and we die not being able to do anything. But hopefully not. Yeah, you know, I actually didn't know Starry was running an event at the same time today. I am pretty unaware of most of the speed events. Does that happen every week? Because if there's a speed event happening at the exact same time as our rush events, we might need to, like, reschedule it. I know the quantum events are at 5 Eastern. So those aren't as bad because we finish by then. But if Starry is running an event at the exact same time, that is definitely going to be an issue. As I know there are a few people who probably don't sign up. We have a few mixed players in the Rush audience. Players like Goes, Gonchi, etc. are primarily speed players, but play in Rush when it happens to work. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's 2,600. Wait, no, that's only 18. Okay, so we do need to summon the Dragius. Well, I guess we actually don't need to, but we will anyway. Battle, swing in, and let's finish the game. And thank you for the game, Blitz Force. I don't think we actually ended up seeing what the archive skill was. But I'm pretty sure that was some kind of Magnum Overlord deck. I'll go ahead and go down the list if Monarchist would like to play around. Poke says, don't fight me, I'm eating. Understandable. Oh, I should say, I should update the Twitch description. Okay, there we go. Alright, we are up first. And we have a pretty normal, set 5. We will definitely take that. We could theoretically put these all in attack mode. but that loses pretty hard to a Dragius. So I would rather not. I'm pretty sure they are on Resonance here. And the only downside is if they don't actually have any boss monster, then the attack mode monsters would have been able to present a bit of a wall. And it looks like they actually don't tribute summon anything, which is kind of the issue I was alluding to. However, we did draw our one Ghost Cyclone. Let's go ahead and pop this and draw a card. Kirby Lady Sisters is fine. The Twinest Dragon, not going to be able to do anything in this turn. But we can Light Sorcerer, debuff a Dragorite, and then bring in 2 1500 monsters that are good enough to clear out the rest of the board. The Harpy Lady Sisters is strong enough to clear out the 1500, so we will chip in with all 3 monsters. And finish this turn, taking a small life point lead. However, I definitely don't expect this to last for long. Our board is quite fragile. Alright, Slugger, but I don't think we have seen a pitcher. So presumably just a tribute fodder here. And of course, oh, Dragius and Slayer are both kind of problematic. Dragius activating the effect and battling. Swinging into here. And we actually can do something pretty interesting. By activating the Sword and Shield here, Dragius goes down to 1500. They still clear my monster, but now both of my other monsters are able to wall out this Dragius. Whereas if they had attacked either of the other ones first, well, I guess it would have been only this one that they really would have wanted to swing into. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to out the Dragius ourselves here, which is a pretty big issue. We have a Tyhone, but that is definitely not good enough. So we'll just go ahead and surrender. We were technically still in the game, but that's okay. Paco said not to fight them, so I guess if there's anyone else I missed, we can go ahead and try it out. Otherwise, it might be time for the ladder. Where I'll probably start off with this and kind of see if we can make it up through gold a little bit. Yeah, I figured, Manicus, that you had something to end me. Though the Dragius turn 1 would have probably been a pretty good play either way. Well, I guess we'll just spectate this game before we head onto the ladder. Alright, so we have Hita versus Blitzforce. And Hita, of course, is using the Charmer animated mat. We have a Thunder player up against whatever Blitzforce is cooking up. We never quite figured it out, though we think it is Magnum Overlord. Hammer Crush, but not Hammer Crush Deal, and we see an Egg piece. Blitzforce is presumably playing the double or even triple maximum deck running all of the different maximums and trying to just draw into any given one of them. This is obviously a little bit inconsistent because both of the headpieces are limit 3. If either of them got unlimited, I think it would be fine to run a double maximum deck, as you'd be fairly likely to draw into one of them eventually. And then we see a green piece. Blitz Force has one more chance to find a max. Mystic Dealer, and they have exactly 3 cards, but a tribute summon Dark Magician Girl confirms no maximum is coming out this turn. And Blitz Force is probably going down once Hita gets another chance. The lone Dark Magician Girl is only 100 points away from lethal already, let alone this Talismanic Seal Array to really turn the screws. If Blitz Force doesn't have multiple good trap cards face down, I'm not sure quite what they would be able to do to survive here. Entering the battle phase, no tribute summon. But the attack goes right through. And with that, let's go ahead and play some ranked. I think we're going to play a little bit of Resonance to start things off ourselves. So let me go ahead and switch over to Luke. And we'll go ahead and queue on up in the PvP arena. I do have a couple of replays already saved for this deck. I think that video will probably be going up on Monday. Or for anyone watching the stream, we can get a sneak preview of what I am running. I don't necessarily think that my build is the optimal one, but I do enjoy this variant more than I like the other ones. Just because it is the way that I prefer to play the game. We are running Bunker Combo. And Pocket, you can already see mine is different as I have the Winged Dragon in the list. And a Pressure. This is probably a Harpy player. So, well, I'll go like this, just in case they try to Piercing Samurai into the Winged Dragon. The Sluggers can go away, and there is a better chance than not that they do not have a Ghost Cyclone. So I'll go ahead and set this face down. I could get blown out by a Cyclone here, but they don't summon one. They do Essel, and they don't find anything, but they reveal multiple spellcaster type monsters, revealing that this is probably not a Harpy deck. So maybe this is just aggro with something like Life Point Gain. Our move, and we draw into a Bunker. Off to a good start, but we don't have the Sports Dragon set up just yet. So I think we need to summon out Merchant for sure. Grab the Bunker Strike. I don't think we want to discard. We have plenty of solid cards already in our hand. And we're filtering with the Bunker Strike as well. We're basically just trying to find a Sports Dragon pitcher. Activate Effect. Alright, pitcher is found. We didn't mill any boss monsters, so we can just go ahead and keep these top of the deck. We want a Dragorite. And we'll put the Phoenix as well. Then we summon the Dragorite, summon the Twin Edge. Activate the skill to allow it to attack twice. Then Resonance boosts up our other monsters. If they have the Widespread Ruin, we are still in a little bit of danger here. But otherwise, we do get in for a fair amount of damage. I guess we will play around Recital by swinging in with this first. And the attack connects. That is huge. Swinging in for 1,000 and then 1,000 more. And now they need to find a spell trap removal card or this pressure goes in. We have both Sports Dragons set up in the grave. Our next card is Phoenix Dragon to revive the Bunker Strike if we don't draw a boss monster on our own. Stones of Magician comes in again, but they do have 3 back row this time. We draw a Bunker Strike and a Phoenix Dragon, so we could use Dragonic Pressure here, but I don't think that's even the right play, as we have Phoenix Dragon and we can summon out multiple monsters capable of just running over the Stones of Magician anyway. And the pressure play is a little bit more vulnerable to a errant Widespread Ruin. Let's go ahead and ditch this Winged Dragon, grab back Bunker. Summon out Bunker Strike number 1. Then we bring in Bunker Strike number 2. And we don't need to actually use the effects. We were hoping to draw a Slayer here, of course. But this is fine. Let's just go ahead, activate the Dragonic Resonance, and see if we get in for game or not. Even if they have a Widespread Ruin to stop one of the attacks, we should be able to clear out the Magician and be in a solid spot. 700 more damage inflicted. And we even have the Widespread Ruin as well. Oh, I can turn off the Duel Room info now, as we are streaming King of Games gameplay. Well, actually, no, this is still like silver gameplay. Okay, and it is finally revealed to be Magician's Shuffle. Running the Stones of Magician over Ancient Rise Dragon is a bit of an odd choice, but maybe they're running cards like Magic Curtain to justify it. Dark Magic Attack. Clearing out my entire board of 2 game-ending cards. Definitely not what I was expecting. But we do have here another Dragonic Pressure. And that might be good enough. I'm definitely going to go ahead and use it. We will keep a Slayer in hand and try to swing in for the 2,800. Of course, if they have a copy of the Guard, that could be problematic, but we have already worked through Widespread Ruin. They go ahead and concede, suspecting that we do, of course, have another boss monster in our hand. Though it is possible I drew another spell trap card. It was a little bit premature. Maybe I just was forced to do so. And we take a win with Resonance. Let's go ahead and queue again. We are up first. And once again, we have drawn a Sports Dragon, which is always nice to see. we're gonna go ahead and just throw these down. Striker can go in defense as well, and we keep a solid hand to respond to our opponent. As long as we draw some more low-level monsters on the next turn, we are going to be able to blow up whatever back row they set. They have set 2 monsters, but they are probably going for a tribute summon. And they reveal they are on Harpies, which is an issue. I did not think about this, and now a Sports Dragon pitcher could be getting swung in for 2,700 damage. However, they pick my strongest monster on the board, which is great news. We also find a Twin-Edged Dragon, and this is just about as good as we could have possibly asked for. Let's go ahead, Dragonic Slayer. Then we summon out 2 Twin-Edged Dragon. We are already able to beat Harpy's Pet Dragon as we have a 2,300 monster on board. So we boost up both Twin-Edged Dragons and activate both effects, giving us a total of 5 attacks against their board. Battle phase, swing, clear monster number 1, clear monster number 2, and that is 3,000 direct damage. And at 2,700, they are in danger of losing to a Dragonic Pressure should we manage to find the Sports Dragon Slugger and a level 7 monster alongside other cards to discard for the spell. Though, of course, adding some back row does complicate things. And adding multiple back row complicates it even more. That being said, if they are ending on a lone Harpy Lady Sisters, and we draw into boss monsters, we should be able to make a pretty solid board of our own. Leaving us with 2 Twin-Edged Dragons gives us a lot of extra cards to work with. Let's see what we find. We find a Pitcher and a Slayer. Okay, this works. Let's summon out Dragonic Slayer first, because the combo I want to do involves boosting Dragonite above 2,000. So we're going to need a space for the Merchant and for the Dragonite. Dragonite comes in first, then Merchant. Merchant's effect will boost Dragonite to 2,000. And then Dragonic Slayer triggers Dragonic Resonance, giving us 2 monsters capable of clearing over the Harpy Lady. And they are only going to have 1 back row available. We pop 1, it was a Counter Pigeons, and they concede. Another win for the Resonance. Pogo says, don't want to be on the receiving end of whatever I type. I was just talking to Clausulus about potential ways to get more players in the point battle rooms. Obviously in Japan, it is very, very late in the night when we start these. But starting it earlier, I'm pretty sure would compromise the ability of players like Paco to participate if we just rolled it back several hours into the middle of the day. I am not running any copies of Dragon's Inferno. Dragonic Slayer is already able to clear the back row, so I wouldn't want to ever brick on that. Also, if you're running any copies of Dragonic Pressure, every copy of Dragon's Inferno is going to make this card less effective. Unfortunately, we are fighting a Hammer Crush Duel player, so our pressure is probably not going to be resolving very much this game. If they don't set anything else, I could theoretically blow it up with the Slayer, but if they set any other card apart from the Hammer Crush, I definitely want to focus on the potential traps. And they are on Zombie Aggro, and they have a full board of back row, which is a little bit problematic. We will do our best to try to hit the trap card. And since we know they have a Hammer Crush, we are just going to ditch the Professor with Twin Edge Dragon because we will simply choose the trap card and be fine. Activate Dragonic Resonance, 1 and 2. Effect, pop this. It was another Hammer Crush. That is pretty concerning. Maybe I do actually want to make them just waste a card on the Hammer Crush rather than trying to swing in for another 1500. So they do have a trap card, as expected. It is a Widespread Ruin, but the idea here is they will at least activate their own Hammer Crush to destroy the Dragonic Pressure rather than giving them a full 5 cards to work with. Obviously, this is still pretty problematic as we are facing down a potential 3500 threat with a lone Twin Edge Dragon and a bluff. We do have one of the Sports Dragons set up, but with a Dragias coming in, I think this game is over. That's already 4,000 damage from the Dragias on its own, plus the 25 is game. And unfortunately, Dragonic Resonance takes its first loss. Though, I suppose they did open okay. I guess pretty badly. If we actually hit the Widespread Ruin, they would have been in some amount of trouble. As we would have swung in for 3k, would have had a Slayer on board, they wouldn't have had the other boss monster. So, I'm just gonna call that one a 50-50. Alright, and we are up first, and we drew both Sports Dragons this time, which seems pretty good to me. They're presumably on Hell Tuning Invasion, so I will, set like this, I think. We're pretty unlikely to use a Twin Edge Dragon on the next turn. And if we draw into a Triad Drago, I would rather have the level 4 monster to be able to draw with. Alright, they summon out a Shadow Buyer. And of course, Hell Tuning Invasion is coming down. As we kind of want to see Heavy Metal over Invasion is better for us. But either way, this game is probably a loss. This is way too much damage to be taking on the first turn. We are down to just 2,500. And that means we can't even use Pitcher to protect ourselves, as they can just change it into attack mode and blow us up that way. We want to make sure all of our monsters are able to attack, so we're going to go for Triad Drago instead of the Sports Dragon Slugger. Draw an extra card, and we draw the Pressure, which is fine. Tribute 1, Tribute 2. And I think what we really want to find is actually just like a Phoenix Dragon. We do not, but we do get the Widespread Ruin, which is not bad. I think we can put the other cards on the... well, this is actually still our first Slugger, so we do kind of need it. Okay. So, back to the top of the deck it is. 1 and 2. Though both of these cards face down, and that should hopefully protect us for an extra turn. Drawing into Widespread Ruin, pretty good as long as they don't pull a Ghost Cyclone and hit it. Enjoy your games, Blitz Force. And Owarikacho finds a monster reincarnation. Are they going for the Shadow Buyer or the Invasion? Looks like they choose the low-level monster. But that is a pretty intensive combo. Using monster reincarnation is going to blow away the final card in their hand. All they get is a lone boss monster. And even with Shadow Buyer recycling this invasion, we are in a pretty good spot. We have the Widespread Ruin for the invasion. I was really hoping for it to be a heavy metal again, as it would once again mean we actually get to keep a monster on board. Let's go ahead and activate the Widespread Ruin. They have no trap cards, and we already have 2 decent statted monsters. All we need to do is draw into some bosses, and this is game. Let's go ahead and activate Phoenix Dragon. And they concede. Once again, the Dragonic Pressure didn't actually do anything. Which is what people have been saying in the chat. The game apparently is just very fast-paced. So, needing to set the card and then have all your combos set up does make things a little bit difficult when you have decks like Harpies, Aggro, and Rebels that are never going to let you actually spend time doing so. We are up first. I really want to get this Sports Dragon into the grave. The Merchant could be good, but I don't think we're going to be using it. We are probably fighting against a Harpy player, so summoning the Winged Dragon in attack mode would have been fine. But it's only a 400 life point difference, and this does force them to find a boss monster. Unfortunately, they find the Pet Dragon. The best mill you can get from the Essel. And of course, they do indeed have the middle piece as well. Alright, our Slugger does get flipped up. And we take 2,600. Phoenix Dragon, not quite good enough. And this is where we really wish we did keep the Merchant around. We can debuff the Pet Dragon down to 2,000 by taking out the Harpy Lady Sisters, but then we don't actually have any way to capitalize on it. We have to start with Bunker Strike and see what we get. Effect, we mill a Slugger, and we draw it into a Pressure, which I don't think is even set up yet. It is not. That said, we will return cards to the bottom of the deck. We don't need you. And do I just try to set up the Pressure for a future turn? Maybe, but then I think we just die. We could just YOLO it, though, and see what happens. Obviously, if they have widespread, it's very over. But we're just going to try to be dumb. Battle phase, this is 1,400. They have the widespread, we can go next. So the idea was, somehow we miraculously survive the next turn after swinging into this. And 1,400 damage brings them into the point where Pressure can inflict lethal damage. But obviously we are going to take way too much like that. So we can surrender, and I think we might switch up our deck. What do I want to play next? We could try the singleton deck. Or maybe just play some rebels to climb casually. Let's go with this for now. What are we at? Gold 1. Okay. I do think Resonance is more than good enough to reach King of Games. But I do want to switch it up a little bit. I mean, obviously a singleton deck is not better than Resonance. Oh, and then I should change the Twitch room as well. I always forget to update the title when we transition to different things. I'll keep the Light Sorcerer as the debuff. Seems like the most useful thing I could probably end up with. Dragius is obviously great for countering whatever they bring out, especially since if this is an Aqua deck. Dion Keto will be debuffed by the Light Sorcerer of Sanctity, and then we can run over it. We see a Seahorse Servant, and this might even be the party. Ultra Life Gain Heal. But I guess not. We see a Summon Skull coming down, and 2 back row. We probably are not looking forward to that too much. They managed to get the hit in. Had a 1/3 chance of just running into a Harpy Lady and not being able to clear. Our move, and this is fine, actually. Let's start with Little D. Definitely not doing anything for our board here. And the question is, do we want to just buff up the Harpy Lady, or do we provide extra value to the Dragius? Obviously, if they have widespread, things are pretty bad, but we don't want to leave a Speedy Performer on board either. So let's go here. Flip you, effect, boost, and then tribute the Dragius. Light Sorcerer of Sanctity debuffs Summon Skull to the point where Dragius can clear it, barring any traps. And then we see what happens. Swing in. Unfortunately, they do have it. We can clear out the Rice Terrace, but they have another trap. This one does go through. End turn. We see some low-level monsters, but those are going to be buffed, if not tributed. Alright, Boogie Master comes in. And now they have 2 2500 monsters, my board is cleared, and I'm down a Light Sorcerer, which means my odds of clearing out the opponent's board are looking kind of low here. I don't have that much else. With both Speedy Performer and Light Sorcerer of Sanctity down, we need like the Trigger Drago to clear one, and something like a setup Harpy Lady Sisters to clear the other. However, maybe they don't have Tornas, and we can just stall for a while. And we can respond with our own Widespread Ruin eventually. We know they have Disco Fever. Wait. Maybe they don't. I don't think they used Disco Fever last turn. So, we're gonna summon the King Rex in attack mode, despite it being an odd play. set this face down, and we'll just pass. Monica says I should play the Carrier and Thunder normal beaters. I'm not on Stormbolt. So I removed the Thunder 1500s for the 1 in 1,000 games where there's a Phantom Bind where it makes the difference. Oh, wait, do you mean Stormbolt Destroyer as Carrier? I'm not running any of the Aquas for Seahorse Carrier, but I could see the case for it here. I'm not really sure. What would you take out? Oh, also, I'm supposed to be on Tornado Draw. I have a Gakuto with the same deck, but I clicked on the wrong one. Alright, and they used Thunder the Thunder to debuff my card. I mean, I'm already running King Rex, which does the same thing. Yami Ruler, not a bad card for stalling things out. Though, of course, they've gained so many life points that I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Pass it over. We still haven't seen any of our maximum pieces, so we could draw into all 3 of them. But that is definitely not going to be 9,000 damage. Hammer Crush also destroying our trap card. Though the more I think about it, we have been streaming for 3 hours. Maybe I should not have started a King of Games climb when I should probably be eating lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever this meal is. Have I eaten today? I don't even remember. Also, somehow all 3 Harpies are in the final 6 cards. Okay. Gazelle. Tribute, set. Mill. Set. And I mean, I'm not winning next turn, no matter what I do. I should probably be on Seal Array, thinking about it. I definitely need to throw Seal Array into this deck. Over one of the 1500s, probably. Next turn, we can maximum summon unless I hit the reincarnation. But I'm not even sure that helps us. We would need more ways to shuffle cards back into the deck. The Harpy Lady Sisters can get 2 of them in there, but that's not going to be enough at all. And we also aren't running Pierce. Alright, they do end, of course. We can Monster Reincarnation, send to grave, add you. I will at least jump scare them, even if it doesn't actually do anything. Phantom Bind is not going to do very much, but it also does not matter. I guess I shouldn't have set the Cyclone. Keeping an extra card in hand would have actually given me another turn. But it wouldn't have actually done anything either. So I'm probably gonna call it a stream here. Thank you everyone who tuned in.